Hello subscribers, this is yours truly JBlue68 coming to you with another video, and I know it's been a minute. I've been busy, tired, and uninspired. But I am inspired now with the new release of Marvel's Shang-Chi, and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I've been covering this subject actually since I think last year, right before the pandemic, when they first released when I heard news of the movie being under production. Now, I think actually that was 2 years ago. Well, anyway, before I get into this video, I just want to say thank you to my subscribers. Thank you for subscribing to my channel, for liking, sharing, and commenting. I hope that you like my shirt, Black Panther. Although this is not about the Panther, this is about Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. And again, I've covered this subject several times. This video is intended for adults, by the way. And thank you for liking my videos, for sticking with me at times when I don't have videos to post. I really appreciate you guys, absolutely. Let me take a sip of coffee before I begin. Oh, who's that on my coffee cup? Pay attention to that. I won't say why. Anyway, Shang-Chi, The Legend of the Ten Rings. This will be my non-spoiler review. Although the movie actually opened up last Thursday. I seen it on opening night, Thursday. The world premiere was actually on Friday, which was September the 3rd. I've had a chance to see it twice, so I can give a legitimate review of the movie. Well, and here he is, Simu Liu, on the cover of Entertainment Weekly, if you can see that without all of that glare. Simu Liu, who is the lead star of the movie, and it also features Michelle, Michelle Yeoh, and Awkwafina as co-stars in the film, and Tony Leung, if I'm pronouncing his last name right. Well, the movie. Let's break it down. And again, this is a non-spoiler. The first thing for me with any movie, and especially with comic book movies, which are always given a hard time, is always to get into and describe the plot of the story. The story itself is not based off of any particular comic book about Shang-Chi. And here's a comic book right here, or a comic book of Shang-Chi. And this was... wow, coincidentally, Chadwick Boseman's name is on the cover of this book, and I have a Black Panther shirt on. Isn't that a trip? It's written by Jean Luing Yang, with Dick Ruan, Philip Tain, and Sebastian Shing as contributors to this comic book story. Well, the plot of the story is kind of simple. It's a family matter, where you have son versus dad, or father versus son type scenario going on. And that's not revealing anything, because that's actually revealed in the trailers of the story. And the main character, Simu Liu, happens to be the son of who is perceived to be a villain in the story. And as we know, to be the Mandarin. And there's actually a plot twist with that too that I don't want to reveal per se, and that's played by the character I mentioned, or actor. I think his name is Tony Leung. If I'm incorrect, then please forgive me. Just make comments below in the comment section of who he actually is. The action figure or toy that they made of the figure of that character is actually called Wing Wu. And he's referred to in the movie by that name too. Now on Disney Plus, they recently released All Hail the King, which was a Marvel short story released on, I think, Thor: The Dark World. It was released back in 2018, I believe it was. Maybe not Thor: The Dark World, but one of the Marvel movies, where it featured actor Ben Kingsley, who actually played as the Mandarin in Iron Man 3, and we found out that he actually was not the Mandarin, it was a fake. He reprises his role in this movie, and you find out more about what that was all about in this movie. um, Legend of the Ten Rings, or the Ten Rings, and I like that connection. Um, in terms of how the character was played out in this particular movie, though, I didn't. It was cool. It was good, and then parts of it were kind of goofy, um, and unnecessary. Not not Ben Kingsley's Mandarin character, but in how it was written in this story. The plot of the story is, again, is mainly a father versus son and a whole family dynamic thing going on with Shang-Chi, his sister, Shai-Ling, and his mom. And again, I don't want to give too much away. Again, this is non-spoiler. But the premises of that was well done and well written. I did feel, however, there were some inconsistencies in terms of that family dynamic. The acting was very well done with all the actors. They did their roles very well. I did feel, however, comedian Awkwafina was a necessary, unnecessary part of the story. I think that she could have been just a cameo appearance, and then that's it. You know, not someone to necessarily carry out the story or flesh out part of the plot of the story. There were scenes where she was funny, and there were scenes where she was annoying. For me, it didn't ruin the movie per se, but she was not necessarily someone who needed to be consistently in this particular film, as it was about Shang-Chi. And to me, that's who they should have stayed focused on. There's a lot of Chinese mythology and lore throughout this story. If you're not familiar with Chinese lore or mythology, you might be lost in terms of a lot of the symbolisms, a lot of the, and as I mentioned, the mythology that's shown in terms of the visual effects, the visuals in this story. You may be a little lost with that. So I would probably advise you to maybe be familiar with, or maybe get familiar with a little bit more with Chinese legends and mythology. In terms of the visuals done in this story, is a visual masterpiece. The sets and everything in the story are beautiful, very well constructed in terms of using practical pieces. The fight scenes are what stand out in this story, and I'm sure if you've not heard the rumors, about this movie, those really stand out. The fight scenes stand out, especially the opening scene is absolutely spectacular, visually stunning and beautiful. The way it was done reminds me of a lot of Chinese animated movies and how they're done in terms of visual perspective, in terms of the scope and the colors too that really pop on the screen. Beautiful. So, of course, Marvel's going to pretty much always be top notch with that. But this was something I think was very different for them, because it's something that has not been done before in terms of a cultural piece. And this is, of course, dealing with a lot of, again, Asian culture, Asian mythology that stands out in this movie. Very nice, very well done. Definitely give that a 10. I did have a problem with some of the fight scenes in terms of them being shot in the dark, which reminds me how DC does a lot of their movies. Where some things, I don't know if it was the movie theater that I was at or how it was filmed, where you could hardly see some things. That I did have a problem with. And visually speaking, because Marvel's not known to do their movies in their fight scenes in a lot, in the filmed in the dark. But it didn't hurt the film entirely, just a little bit. The dialogue in the movie was well done, and how they explain the history of the Ten Rings is very interesting. Also, the amulets that are worn by Shai-Ling and by Shang-Chi, the history of those, the history of his mother, his father, and how they met. There's a whole history thing going on throughout the movie. But I think they could have contained it in one piece instead of kind of explaining it over and over again. I did like how they revisited his past and showed him as a kid, and his sister and his mom and dad. Those were important pieces to the plot and moving the story along. But they could have been contained, I think, a little bit more better, where they could have made the story flow a little bit better, because it didn't flow the way it should have to me. And also, in terms of some of the characters that I thought that were shown in the trailers, them having more bigger parts in the film, and they actually did not. And I won't say who those characters were, but to me that was actually kind of a mislead in the trailers. The thing that really, to me, kind of damaged this film is it relied too much on CG effects. CG effects versus practical effects. It started off with practical effects. I hope that's not giving anything away. This film, when I first heard about it, was going to be more so like a throwback or reminiscent of the Bruce Lee films, which were supposed to inspire this movie, and the comic book. It inspired the comic book. Shang-Chi was inspired by the Kung Fu age of the 70s. And this movie is supposed to be like a throwback to that age. Mainly like the Bruce Lee films, specifically Game of Death. And that's what I was hearing, that this film would actually be reminiscent of. But it wasn't. Not really. And it could have been. And I think they could have relied more on practical effects, especially when it came to the fight scenes in this movie. But instead it got more into magic and mysticism. Again, like I said, Chinese lore of magic and mysticism. And this is not a movie to me that should have used magic or mysticism. That's for Doctor Strange, WandaVision, and films, Marvel films of that nature. This film should have stuck to practical effects. Mainly like Falcon and the Winter Soldier did, or even Black Widow did. With the fight scenes, they should have stuck to more practical fight scenes to establish him as a more of an earthbound hero. Because Shang-Chi, from the comic books that I've read from the past and in the present, he's a kind of a street fighter. He uses his hands and his fists. Kung Fu. The Master of Kung Fu is what was a subtitle originally for the Shang-Chi comic books. And that's what they should have stuck with, I think, in terms of establishing him as a hero or even a superhero. The magic stuff you could have got into later on, probably, and since they'll probably have this as a trilogy, I'm assuming he'll have more stories in the future. And that's what they should have stuck to. It's kind of like the first Captain America movie, which did the same thing. Started off with practical effects and then got into this magic mysticism stuff with Hydra, and then also with the, what was it called? The Tesseract. So maybe, I think that there's hope for this new superhero, this new character. I mean, not new to me, not new to comics, but new to the screen. He's a brand new superhero. That they could do the same thing with any follow-up movies, like they did with Captain America and the Winter Soldier and Civil War, which broke him down to being more of back to being an earthbound hero, especially Winter Soldier. This new superhero has the hope, to me, to do the same thing, to get him back to being a ground-based hero, dealing with more issues on Earth as opposed to the supernatural or the magic stuff, which again I think was not where this film should have went, but that's where it did go, and that to me hurt the film in terms of expectations and what I expected him to do, what I expected the story and the plot to be. So all that being said, out of 10, which is what my scale is in terms of rating films, 1 to 10, I rate the movie. After seeing it a second time, I was going to give it a 7. I'll give it an 8 for effort. I'll give it an 8, somewhere down there with Thor in the Dark World. With Thor Dark World and, I don't know, another, I guess the first Captain America movie, Captain America and the First Avenger, which are like around a 7 for me. So yeah, I'll give it an 8, and it barely made it there. So I liked it, but I didn't love it. And this being a premiere movie for a brand new superhero, I should have loved it, not just liked it. So I liked it. Do I encourage you to see it? Absolutely. Do you need to see it a bunch of times? Absolutely not. Will I get it when it gets on DVD and Blu-ray? Absolutely. This is a Phase 4 film. Brand new superhero to the screen. Absolutely, I'm going to get it. I'm a Marvel man. And Marvel has had so many successes as far as I'm concerned. They can have a hit or miss, but not too many. I'm loving the Phase 4 films so far, which began with WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I mentioned. Loki was okay. We're now in the What If series on Disney+. We had Black Widow, which I actually thought was better than this. And they should have did with this movie what they did with Black Widow in terms of the fight scenes. Again, the fight scenes were amazing, but they should have stuck with practical effects, and I stick to that point. Next up, we got the Eternals. I think Hawkeye, and then Spider-Man No Way Home. So that's my review of the movie. I hope that you enjoyed this video, enjoy the review. Please go see it if you haven't. I hope this doesn't discourage you not to see it. It was pretty good. This could have been better. That's all. Okay, Rotten Tomatoes gave it I think an awful review, but you know, I still say go and see it. You know, and definitely see the what are they called, the Easter eggs, or the what are they called, the end of the movie, where they have the additional scenes at the end of the movie. You definitely want to stay for those. I think you'll be excited to see them. So that's it. That's all. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe. Tap the notification bell so you can get more videos like this as I post them immediately. Hopefully I can post them immediately, because I know I have not. And again, my apologies for that. So that's it. That's all, y'all. Peace, love, and hair grease.